Hello, and welcome back to the Ground and Root podcast. I am your host and holistic cancer dietitian, Dion Detraz. On this podcast, we are exploring the world of holistic and functional strategies to help enhance your healing and help you stay cancer-free. And I'm very excited for this month's topic. So if you're watching it after we just released it, I want to say welcome to June. It is the start of June. And if you're listening to it later, that's great too. This month, we are going to be focusing on a topic that I am calling the doorways to healing. We are going to be taking a summer break in July and August, and then we'll pick back up again in September with new episodes. So just to have that on your radar, we'll do another month of episodes, and then we're going to take a little break, and you can revisit some of our older ones if you'd like. So this month, we are exploring the idea that there are multiple doorways to healing. Basically, this means that not everyone's path needs to look exactly the same for it to work, right? What's most important is that you find the doorway that you're most called to and start there. For some, it may be all that's needed. Like you go through one doorway and your body heals. There's many different miraculous healing and radical remission stories where that was true, where they did the one thing, like the carrot juicing every day, or they went on a year-long spiritual quest and their body healed. So it might be just the one doorway. And then for others, probably for more of us, it will eventually guide us through each of the doorways. And every time we work through a doorway, we're adding another layer of health and healing to our body. So before I get into the specifics of the doorways, I want to start with just an overarching principle of what we're aiming for and why I'm breaking it down by these different paths, so to speak. So for me, it all comes back to this idea of energy and coherence. To me, it's the umbrella, it's the goal that we're aiming for when we talk about healing, to restore energetic coherence in all of our cells, in all of our tissues, right? In every layer of our physical body, the physical level or layer. Then there's also the emotional layer, there's a spiritual layer, the energetic layer, right? I'm going out. Imagine your auric field, for those of you who are watching me on the video. The idea is that we create coherence in all of these levels so that the body can stay in harmony, in balance, in vitality, in radiance. When there's incoherence, when there's something that disrupts the coherence, and again, whether that be in the physical body, emotional body, energetic body, it creates a missignaling that begins the cascade of dis-ease, right? And we're talking about this in the context of cancer because that's the focus of our podcast, but really it can be for any type of dis-ease or ill health, yes? So I do believe that medicine is beginning to catch up to this concept. We're seeing more and more studies coming out around the power of energy and manipulating energy and how that relates to health and healing and science and the physical body, right? So I don't feel like this is as esoteric as it might have been. And even 5 years ago, this might have felt harder for the medical community to grasp. It is becoming more talked about, which to me is very exciting because that is where I see the future of healing and health and medicine going, is this idea of coherence, right? That we are energetic beings, that we are electricity, right? There's this illusion of matter, but if we understand even just the basics of physics, we know that everything is energy, everything is vibrating. Our cells are vibrating, right? Like everything, this table, this camera, everything's vibrating. And if we can manipulate that frequency, that energy, that electrical current, however you want to imagine it, that coherence, we can influence health. That to me is super powerful. And I hope it makes sense because I know it can be a bit hard to grasp first. And I think I will probably, maybe when we kick back up again in September, I'll do a deeper dive podcast just on that concept and give more examples and studies and things. But for now, I just wanted to introduce it so that the doorways made more sense. Okay. So I've identified what we're going to talk about over today's episode and in 2 weeks. So the next two solo episodes, I've identified 6 doorways to healing. And each of these doorways, each of these paths influences our coherence, influences our energy, but from a different angle. Okay. And like I said, some people are going to find just one of those entry points heals the body. And others are going to find that they're going to need more than one. Maybe they're going to need all 6, but I want to explore them each individually. So we're going to start with the first 3 today. And I purposefully am starting with the 3 that are impacting more the physical body. I feel like for many people, that's more accessible, it's more familiar. And then next time, we'll talk more about the emotional and spiritual bodies and how those doorways can influence coherence. All right, are we ready? Let's dive in. So we are going to start with doorway number 1. And doorway number 1 is what I call removing disruptors, which basically just means that sometimes we need to remove the things that are causing the incoherence, right? That are causing this disconnect in our cells, in our energy. So sometimes we just focus on what needs to come out, right? What stressors or toxins or energetic, like negative energetic influences that need to be removed so that then the body can just heal itself, right? It's not necessarily you needing to add something else on top of it. We just need to get rid of the things that are interfering. So let me give you some examples of what this might be. So, and I'll do it in a few different areas. So there's physical ones that are probably more familiar, but then there's also emotional and there's some energetic ones as well. So let's start with the physical. The physical could be like anything we have exposure to, right? It could be anything in our environment. So it could be environmental chemicals, it could be pollution, right? Environmental toxins, heavy metals, things like this, pesticides, right? Such that probably feels more familiar, something you've already considered. We just did, not just, but a couple months ago, we did a whole topic around detoxification, right? We talked a lot about these toxins. So those sort of physical toxins, anything that could be creating oxidative stress. So we can also talk about just in our blood, like in the physiological level of our bodies, there could be stressors there that are creating disharmony, incoherence, that could be allowing dis-ease, allowing cancer to grow. So oxidative stress, things that cause oxidative stress, inflammation in the body, high blood sugar levels, high insulin levels. There's a lot of different things we can monitor and measure to see how that might be impacting the coherence in your body. It could be infections, particularly chronic infections, right? Difficult to treat infections that can create long-term consequences of incoherence in the cells that can create something like cancer. So that's the physical realm. Then there's also the emotional pieces. So this could be anything that's causing stress for you, particularly chronic stress, right? I don't mean like the acute occasional thing that we can handle, like chronic, unrelenting stress or negativity in your life. So that could be from your work, that could be from your family, your relationships, your friends. It could be what's happening in the world. It could be what you're seeing on the nightly news or hearing on the radio or seeing on your social media platforms, right? It could be financial stress. It could be just the sheer volume of responsibilities and tasks you have to get through every day, like this never ending to-do list that's just draining your energy. I think we can all relate to that. It could also be past emotional wounds or trauma in the body that hasn't ever really been looked at or resolved or moved through, right? Could even be stuck emotions, especially stuck negative emotions like anger or resentment or grief or even fear and worry. Those emotions that might be harder for you to move through and they just get tucked away somewhere because you just don't want to deal with it right now. Well, wherever it's being tucked away is creating incoherence, is creating disharmony in that part of your body, right? It's impacting your energetic field. It's impacting your cellular function. And then, of course, there could be actual energetic stressors too. And those could come again from the environment, but less something you would hold or touch, like a chemical, right? Let's say like a cleaning product or something. This might be from artificial lighting. It could be from cell tower, like radiation, right? From cell towers or Wi-Fi or the EMF fields that we're surrounded by with our computers and TVs and electronics, things like this. It could also be spiritual stressors that are impacting your energetic field, some that you're aware of and some that you might not even be aware of. So it can come from a lot of different places, but the pattern is that they're all creating some disruption to how the body is functioning, to the actual cellular function and to your energetic frequency, your energetic field. So, how do we address this? Right? Some of it, again, might be pretty obvious. What we do inside of our coaching containers and like when we work with people one on one and in our group setting is we're doing testing. Like we actually do labs and testing and comprehensive assessment to really help us understand what are all the potential stressors that you're currently dealing with. Again, what's known and maybe what's not known, right? What's behind the scenes that maybe you hadn't even realized is creating disruption in your body. So first we just have to identify what are the stressors and then come up with a game plan to remove them or at least reduce them. Yeah, so we could use functional medicine protocols when there are physical stressors like infections or heavy metals or mold or like oxidative stressors or things that are contributing to inflammation in the body, things like this. We might use actual functional medicine plans to help us remove and repair those things. It could be part of your daily practices, like buying organic food, reducing your sugar intake, reducing alcohol, less processed, ultra processed foods. Yeah, so you're lowering your burden on your body. It could be changing out your products, changing out your skincare products, your cleaning products, etc. Right? So some of it might just be in like daily habits and practices that you have. It could also be emotional or energetic healing, right? It could be quitting the toxic job, especially if it's been weighing on you for years, or leaving the toxic relationship, or even something maybe as simple as taking a news fast, like protecting your energy from the negativity in the world right now by just taking a break from letting it influence your energy, right? It could also be just that would be an example too of adding sort of energetic protections, like where are you leaking energy or being influenced by something that is not good for your health, for your well-being and vitality, and then can you protect yourself from that better? Even fasting. I talk a lot about fasting. It's one of my favorite tools. And even fasting can be a way that we remove disruptors. So in doorway 1, it's really about identifying what's preventing health. Yes, what's getting in the way? Physical, emotional, spiritual, energetic. What are all the different stressors, all the different toxins, if you will, that could be creating this incoherence? And then we remove that, we clear it away through various methods so that the body can then just reharmonize, right? Like become coherent again. And that coherence creates healing. It creates health. So sometimes we don't even have to add anything more. We just have to remove what was getting in the way. So hopefully that makes sense. That, and obviously we could probably spend a whole hour just on that topic, but I want to go through 3 today. So that's the overview of doorway 1. Now, doorway 2, which I think is maybe even a more common one that people start with, or at least they come to me for support around, is around nourishment, right? So sometimes rather than getting rid of things, sometimes we just need to focus on bringing in more of the good stuff, the things that like the raw ingredients that our body needs to heal, to function at a higher level of vibration, right? A higher level of health. And I do believe that for many, this is maybe a more intuitive place to start on their healing journey. So probably the most common example here would be changing your diet, right? Making changes in your diet, bringing in different foods or removing other foods, going organic, going more plant-based, eating real whole foods. Yes. So like changing how you're nourishing yourself with food can be one of the ways we do this. It could also be adding in extra allies, like adding in herbs or supplements or even fresh juices or functional foods or essential oils. Like we're bringing in remedies, right? We're bringing in tools to boost our systems, to give us even more healing potential beyond just the food that we're eating every day. And it could also be beyond our food choices, beyond what we're taking, beyond what we're ingesting, I should say. It could be adding more self-care practices, right? Or it could be getting better sleep, like taking steps to get better sleep so we have more repair and rest during the night. So anything we're doing to nourish ourselves on a deeper level could be our doorway towards healing, right? And why does that work? Obviously, hopefully, it's obvious that again, we're bringing in things that fuel our cells, that invite in more harmony and coherence into our cells, into our tissues. So whether that's with nutrients, whether that's with specific foods or herbs or plants, right? The other thing that I think is interesting to consider is that food, especially freshly picked, raw, like peak of its growing season food, is going to have a frequency. It's going to carry energy, right? And when you eat that or you take that as an herbal remedy or whatever it might look like for you, you are actually bringing that energy, bringing that frequency into your body. And that can also help co-regulate your other cells. So I just want to say a quick point here in case that's not already obvious to you. Just basic principle around energy and frequency is that think about, I think probably the easiest way to imagine this if you're a musician or if you've been around musical instruments, like when you tune something, right? The idea behind a tuning fork, for example, is that it's setting a frequency and then everything around it begins to vibrate at that frequency. And the higher the frequency, the more that attracts the frequency up as opposed to the lower frequency bringing it down, right? So the frequencies are always like trying to match, and typically they match towards the higher frequency. Now, this is good when we're thinking about health and healing because cells that are vibrating at a high frequency, a high energetic frequency, are healthier. For example, cancer cells have had measurements, like they've been shown to measure at a lower vibrational frequency than healthy cells. Healthy cells vibrate at a higher frequency. So the more we bring in foods or practices that elevate our frequency, the more we attune the other cells to that frequency. Does that make sense? So it's helping to reharmonize the cells and bring them back to a state of health, back to a state of harmony or balance or coherence. So foods and plants can help us do this, but also our sleep, right? Our self-care practices. The way this can be helpful is because it's shifting our nervous system. Anything we do to nourish ourselves is going to help calm and regulate the nervous system, right? I've talked about this many times about helping us get out of the stress response, right? Like that fight or flight state. Fight or flight state is like incoherence, right? Calm, grounded, the parasympathetic nervous system state, that rest, repair, digest, heal state, that is coherent. So anything we do to help us come back into that state, like more often, the more we invite in that frequency, that coherence. So getting better sleep, having more self-care practices, taking better care of ourselves, nourishing ourselves in a kinder, more deeper way is going to shift the nervous system out of fight or flight, which is going to shift your energetic coherence. Pretty cool, right? Okay, the third doorway we're going to talk about today, again, focused more on the physical body, is movement. Now, humans, mammals, probably every animal on the planet are meant to move, right? We were designed to move. Lack of movement is as dangerous to our bodies as smoking, as some of those other stressors we talked about, right? So beginning to move more, beginning an exercise journey or a movement journey can be another doorway towards healing. There's a lot of benefits that come from moving more. And remember, for many of us, once we enter one doorway, the one that we're most called to, eventually the other ones start to come online too, right? Like, how common is it somebody starts a new gym membership and all of a sudden they're buying different food at the grocery store too? Just because it's like we're moving more, we're exercising, we're feeling better, we want to eat differently, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're just going to stay in the one doorway. It's just your entry point, and then you'll go from there, right? So let's talk about some of the different types of movement, because it could be intentional exercise, like you're starting a new exercise program or gym membership or strength training program, or maybe you're going to train for something that you want to accomplish, right? Like your first 5K, or maybe you want to do a triathlon or a marathon or something like this. If you go back to, I believe it was in January, I shared a really inspiring episode with Dean Hall, and that was part of his healing journey, right? He trained to be the first person ever to swim the length of the Willamette River in Oregon. And he was doing an insane amount of movement, not only to prepare for it, but then to actually do it, right? And he has such an incredible story. If you haven't listened to that episode, I'll make sure to link to it below in the show notes, because you should definitely go back and listen to it. So maybe something like this, like it's an intentional, I'm going to start exercising or I'm going to train for something. Maybe it's just moving your body more or starting to bring in movement practices that also intentionally move energy. Because remember, we're still coming back to this overarching goal of coherence, right? So, what are some of those movements? Things like yoga and Tai Chi or Qigong or dancing, right? Where you're moving the body, yes, but we're also intentionally moving energy. It could even be just like what I'm doing right now, standing at my desk, taking more standing breaks, going on walks, stretching, like just using your body more during the day. That could be an entry into this doorway. It could also be, I would lump this here as well, is anything that's going to create movement in the body, like vibrational movement. Because again, if we go back to coherence, right, back to this idea of frequency, anything that vibrates in the body is going to shift frequency, right? It's going to impact our energy. So that could be something that you do, like bouncing or jumping or standing on a vibration plate. You may have seen those all around like social media. Or it could even be from sound, right? We talked about, I had another really lovely episode that might have been in January as well, actually, with Lauren, where we talked about sound and vibration as her doorway to healing, right? So sound, music, that could be another way. It's again, it's setting frequency. It's setting a higher tone to help everything come back into balance, into coherence. So how is this all impacting? I think the energetic benefit is maybe a little bit more obvious based on what I just said, but of course there's a bajillion physical benefits as well, right? From moving more, from exercising. Oxygenation in the body is a big one, right? Blood flow, getting things moving, building muscle. Muscle is probably one of our most important predictors of longevity, is how much muscle we maintain or build after a certain age. So building muscle, lowering blood sugar, helping our bodies detox, right? Like moving lymph, sweating, improving digestion. Okay, so tons of physical benefits. I remember when I was working as a health coach at Kaiser many years ago, we were teaching classes to our patients. And probably the thing that I said the most is, if exercise could be put into a pill, it would be the most prescribed pill, because it has so many benefits. It literally influences almost anything that we're dealing with. So there's that component, right? It's also improving the immune system, immune function, as long as we're not overdoing it. There is a caveat there of doing too much, assuming we're not doing too much. But there are really good energetic benefits too. So we talked about just that vibrational frequency that could be shifting, but exercise or movement is also a really good way to move emotion, to move energy. When things get stuck, when things feel heavy, right? And when we're dealing with things that we don't necessarily want to revisit or talk about per se, but it's stuck and we know we need to work it through, movement can help us work it through without intellectualizing it, right? We just move it through our body by moving, by exercising, by taking a walk in the woods, by dancing. Okay. I think that's all I want to say with that. I hope that makes sense. And I would say too, just as we improve, let's say, the vibration of our cells with movement, again, it's just a reminder that's creating this higher frequency, which is inviting in more coherence, cellular coherence, right? We can't grow cancer or any disease if there is coherence. If the cells are healthy and vibrating at a high level and radiating energy, we're just not going to create disease. So the more we can invite that into our body with these different tools and practices, the more we help ourselves heal and stay healthy. Okay, so those are the first three. All right, we'll do the next three in 2 weeks. But let me just summarize. So, first and foremost, what I want to say is whether you start with the body, the mind, or the spirit, okay, all of these doorways are going to impact your energy. They're going to impact your health, obviously, and they're going to improve cellular coherence. Okay. And like I said, coherence is naturally anti cancer, anti disease, right? That's what we are aiming for. Now, we started with the doorways that are more closely connected to your body because I feel like for many people, that's a more natural place to begin. Right? We talked about removing the things that could be causing incoherence. And then we talked about nourishing ourselves in a deeper way and then moving our body in a lot of different ways that could look. Next week, I'm very excited because we're actually bringing in a guest expert. We're going to talk more about movement, dance, and music specifically as a doorway towards healing. We're going to be joined by Tina Woods. She is a longevity expert turned DJ. Maybe raver first. Raver turned, so longevity expert, raver turned DJ, who is now blending all of it into something she calls the Joy Score experiment. We're going to talk about that more and how the blend of movement, music, sound, community plays a role on a healing journey. It's really exciting to me because I feel, again, you want to find the doorway that's resonating for you. And if you love to dance, if you love music, that could be your doorway. How amazing, right? Now, just a reminder, I know I say this in almost all of the episodes, but just a reminder, I do talk a lot more about how to get started on your healing journey, but even specifically with these doorways, with taking a body, mind, spirit approach inside of our new Substack community. I'll make sure to link to that below. So if you'd like to go deeper, you can join us over on Substack, where we will do that. We will explore all of these things more. And then, of course, if you want the full deep dive of how to enhance your coherence, right? Taking this truly holistic body, mind, spirit approach, that is what our coaching container is for, the Healing Accelerator. And we can hop on a free call, no obligation, but just to learn more about what we offer, what it looks like, how we can support you, what you're going through, and to see if it's a good fit. All right. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I hope you found this interesting. I'm excited to go through the next three with you as well. And remember, if you are enjoying the content that we're covering here at the Ground and Root podcast, please help us spread the word. Share, subscribe, leave a review. We really appreciate your support in helping this information get into the ears of as many people as we can, right? As many people as we can touch. I wish you such a beautiful day, and I look forward to connecting with you again on next week's episode with Tina. Bye for now.